Eternal agony awaits!
Final Fantasy IV starts with a Dark Knight Cecil returning from the village of Mysidia, having just slaughtered a bunch of bathrobe-wearing frauds in order to steal their crystal. After delivering the crystal back to his clearly righteous and just king back home at Castle Baron, Cecil asks him if the weekly genocide business is really necessary. Infuriated by the lack of faith in his grand machinations, Theoden and Grima dismiss Eomer for being a traitor and send him to bed with no supper.
Oh no!
Along the way to bed, Cecil encounters Kain, the leader of the Dragoons, of which there are exactly one, so congrats, who tells him that they have to deliver the bomb ring to the village of Mist. We're gonna talk about this in a little bit. He also runs into Rosa, Cecil's love interest, whose character can be defined as being Cecil's love interest, and Sid, the airship engineer who probably screams rock and stone on an hourly basis.
We're rich!
After successfully engaging in nap time, Cecil sets off from Baron with Kain in tow, where the credits roll, giving you the whimsy and wonder you need to start delivering a suspicious package to your local village.
I appear to have burst into flames!
Various RPGs happen until the party enters the Mist Cave, where the Mist voice tells them that they need to Mist stop or they'll Mist fucking regret it. Eating the advice very carefully, Bert and Ernie decide to viciously attack the Mist, where it converges into the Mist Dragon. They dismantle the fell creature before finally arriving at Mist, where the bomb ring starts to glow, causing the entire village to ignite into flames. Who could have possibly predicted this? Okay, for those unaware, a bomb is a common enemy in Final Fantasy whose iconic attack is blowing itself up. Now, a bomb ring can mean whatever it wants to in universe, but for anybody who's played another Final Fantasy, it's basically the equivalent of the Pope giving you a suicide vest and telling you to deliver it to an orphanage. It just comes off as blatantly evil, and you know exactly what's going to happen, so you wonder why you're even forced to do it in the first place. In fact, they fixed this in some older translations by giving it a completely different name, meaning that this most recent version is actively dumber than the others.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
Anyway, during the chaos, a child is heard lamenting the fact that her mother has come down with the Deadsies. Turns out she was the summoner of the Mist Dragon, meaning that when Brody and Tanner slayed the beast, it also killed the mother of this little girl.
Oh no!
Understandably peeved by this, the child summons the visage of Golden Age Schwarzenegger, tearing the earth asunder and sending Kain into the plot waiting room. Waking up without his best buddy, Cecil escorts the unconscious child to the desert village of Kaipo, where kids apparently sleep free. Despite literally being a Dark Knight, the epitome of sharp corners, Cecil vows to protect the child from any who would try to hurt her, including some nearby jobbers from Baron. The child reveals her name to be Rydia, and decides to allow her mother's murderer to murder murderers in her stead. Also, somehow Rosa got here, and now Cecil has to go and collect the sand pearl in order to cure her desert fever. Put one on the counter! Joel and Ellie enter the underground waterway, where they find a gibbering old man trying to find the nearest blockbuster. This old curmudgeon is called Teller, a sage who is well versed in a variety of magic tomes and only wears a diaper every now and then.
I'm 31 years old.
He's traveling through this cavern in order to save his daughter at Damkian Castle, where she's being violently wooed by a malicious bard. He joins the party and the gang encounters Octomammoth, a fearsome foe whose only weakness is dying when its health reaches zero. After exiting the cave, Cecil finds the Red Wings, which is Baron's air force, by the way, already attacking Damkian Castle because the king is a morally grey villain who just happens to love carpet bombing. They enter the castle and find most of the inhabitants mercilessly slain, including Anna, Teller's daughter.
Oh no!
Fortunately, the fiendish bard is still alive, leading to Teller activating the Bonk Protocol while the bard tries to explain himself to Foxy Grandpa, revealing his name to be Edward. Turns out Edward and Anna were actually in love, and amidst the chaos of the attack, she shielded him from Golbez, the new leader of the Red Wings, who we'll learn more about later. This leaves Teller enraged by the fact that his only living relative is now an in-law, causing him to storm off and leave. Edward continues to be a weenie and weeps for his fallen countryman and lover until Rydia tells him to quit being such a little bitch, and Cecil slaps his shit. With his survivor's guilt now behind him, Edward joins the party and leads Cecil and Rydia to the Antlion nest in his totally ballin' hovercraft. Battling their way through goblins and other hideous creatures, the party eventually encounters the Antlion.
Ants! Ants! Ant-Man!
Cecil obtains the sand pearl, brings it back to Rosa, who has absolutely nothing of value to say but feels the need to join anyway, and then they set off towards Farball, home of the next crystal.
Face to foot style, how'd you like it?
However, in order to get to Farball, they'll first need to traverse Mount Hobbs, the entrance of which is currently blocked by a wall of ice. The group implores Rydia to melt it, but due to, you know, the permanent mental and emotional damage she sustained from watching her friends and family succumb to the endless walls of flame and the timeless nightmare of what was once her home, she's not too keen on fire. Thankfully, peer pressure works out, and Rydia's trauma is immediately cured, causing Rydia to learn fire, just like my boss did 2 years ago. Not too long after that, the troop finds a lone monk doing battle with the local ghouls. While he's able to dispatch the literal goblin children on his own, he seeks the party's aid when the Mom Bomb attacks. They straight up just called it Mom Bomb. fucking fantastic. After dealing with Montblanc bomb cop, Yang joins the party and they arrive at Farball Castle. The quintet meets with the king, who looks identical to the Baron King because sprites are expensive, where they decide to protect the castle from invaders. After Edward trips on his own incompetence, the group is forced into the crystal chamber, where Kane decides he's had enough of being a benchwarmer and reappears, deciding to be a naughty boy and work for the villains. With all hope seemingly lost, the hope loses even harder when Golbez makes his first appearance,
There he is!
where he yoinks the plot MacGuffin and the crystal at the same time. Confident with the fact that they've accomplished exactly fucking nothing, the group decides to head back to Baron via ship. Unfortunately, the ocean itself has something to say about that.
Oh no.
We were bad, but now we're good.
Cecil wakes up on the beach with all of his companions missing and presumed dead, since Leviathan decided to remind everyone what it's like
Under the sea.
wandering into the nearest village. He sees a lot of black mages. Oh, this is gonna be awkward. After getting physically, verbally, and spiritually attacked by the citizens of Mysidia, Cecil asks the Elder if there's any way to revert his dark gift. He tells him of Mount Ordeals, a dangerous trail that allows for Dark Knights to become good, wholesome Christian boys. He also summons two mages to help Cecil in his continued failures, known as Palom and Porom, otherwise designated as Child used to deal with undead enemies and Child used as free healthcare. Also, Palom is obnoxious and Porom enjoys physically abusing her brother. The trio ascends Mount Ordeals, dealing with various ghouls and ghosts until they re-encounter Professor Farnsworth, who inexplicably traveled halfway around the world to get here. Teller claims he's here to learn the spell Meteor and rejoins the party when suddenly Scarmiglione attacks. He's the first of the four elemental fiends, with his element being Earth, which is fitting considering the party consisting of 2 children, a war veteran, and Betty fucking White put him 6 feet under with little to no effort. Now at the summit of the mountain, the group enters an ominous chamber where Cecil's mysterious Ghost Dad calls out to him. Ghost Dad tells Cecil that in order to become a paladin, he'll have to slay his edgelord OC by pressing defend over and over again, because self-harm isn't cool. Cecil finally renounces darkness, ditching that likely rancid-smelling Dark Knight armor in favor of glorious Old Spice sprayed paladin armor. Also, Teller remembers all of the spells that he forgot for no reason, including Meteor, the spell he plans to bludgeon Golbez to death with.
Regicide.
John Mysidia sees that Cecil has cast away his last Blink-182 album and decides to open up the Devil's Road, a mystical portal that happens to go to Baron. Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Teller take the Detroit line straight to Baron, which feels like it should be a lot more eventful than it actually is. Arriving in town, the crew encounters Yang, who apparently lost his memory after Leviathan decided to vore the boat earlier. Thankfully, violence is always the answer, causing him to regain his senses and rejoin the party. While sneakily stomping around the castle and revisiting his trusty bed, Cecil runs into Bygan, who has surprisingly stayed loyal to Baron rather than Golbez. After approximately 18 seconds, Bygan betrays Cecil, revealing that he has sided with Lord Vader in order to gain tremendous power. Said power is turning into a vanilla Yu-Gi-Oh monster. After letting Bygans be bygones, the party enters the throne room where they discover the king, who's apparently been drinking a little too much gay frog water.
And I'm coming.
Captain Evil reveals himself as Cagnazzo, the elemental fiend of water whose strategy in battle is to die after getting blizzarged twice. I'm not even joking, literally just 2 blizzargers.
Bazinga.
Sid enters the room to congratulate Cecil on his regicide, but as they try to leave, Cagnazzo's lingering salt decides to turn the room into a trash compactor.
Oh no.
With no way to defeat the indestructible locked wooden doors, Palom and Porom decide to heroically sacrifice themselves by turning themselves to stone, blocking the walls from moving any further. After recovering from second-hand infanticide, Sid leads Snap, Crackle, and Teller to the Enterprise, an airship that they'll use to take the fight to Golbez. However, before they can act any further, Kane appears with his signature ghouls, telling Cecil that if he wants to see Queen Dedda Damsel again, he'll have to bring them the last lucky charm. Cecil complies, telling Sid to set course for Troya, home of the final crystal, and apparently the Amazon rainforest, because holy shit, look at all that green.
Fucking magnets. How do they work?
The party enters Troya Castle, where they quickly encounter a bedridden Edward, whose continued existence makes Leviathan kind of look like a chump. He informs the group that the last crystal has been taken by the Dark Elf, whose only weakness is metallic weapons. Unfortunately, the Dark Elf is also the only villain with half a brain, since he put a magnetic barrier around his cave, rendering metal weapons heavy to the point of uselessness. With a thumbs up from everyone's favorite cheerleader, John, Paul, Ringo, and Teller enter the magnetic cave and face the Dark Elf, who proves to be too strong for the party to handle. Thankfully, Bedward decides to be useful for a change, playing a magical tune that dispels the magnetic barrier, allowing the party to fell the Dark Elf and his dragon persona. Cecil compares the girth of his airship with Kane's until he decides to lead the party to the Tower of Zot, which is inexplicably techno as fuck. Ascending the tower, the gang eventually encounters the Magus Sisters, a trio of sisters who have no backstory, pose no threat, and their only notable feature is that they'll have 3 graves instead of 1. After the sisters bite the dust, Golbez reappears,
There he is!
using Rose's life as a bargaining chip in order to get the last crystal from Cecil. Naturally, he obliges, to which Golbez replies with,
Whomever are you talking about?
Oh, that's very cheeky.
making Cecil outraged by his rudeness, but more importantly causing Teller to square the fuck up and take on Golbez by himself. Regular spells don't seem to do much, but after finally casting Meteor, he hits the damage cap, defeating Golbez in one majestic swarm. Golbez is weakened but not fully beaten, throwing one last salty bolt at Cecil before having an odd episode where he misses the chance to finish him off. Also, Tella is now dead. Also, Kane was being mind-controlled by Golbez the entire time, and said mind control was broken when Tella decided to pull out his meteor gun. Kane leads the party and Tella's fresh corpse to Rosa's location, where despite the fact that they're in a hyper-advanced future pagoda, she's being held in an Acme-level trap. Cecil rescues Rosa, they embrace, Kane wonders why his groin armor is feeling so funny all of a sudden, and all is seemingly going well for once. Anyway, here's Barbarisia, the elemental fiend of wind, who's surprisingly challenging in comparison to her brothers until Kane remembers that he can jump, killing her instantly. Back at Baron, Kane informs the party that there are actually 4 more crystals that Golbez needs before he can become Super Golbez, all of them located in
The Underworld.
After some mild Oppenheimering, the party makes it to the Underworld, where they find the Red Wings already doing battle with literal tanks!
Has changed.
These tanks belong to the dwarves, the primary denizens of literal Hellworld, who apparently already managed to lose 2 of the 4 crystals, so we're off to a good start. After Sid leaves the party to upgrade the airship, Master Monk somehow senses a sinister presence coming from the crystal chamber, which belongs to none other than the dolls, Kalka and Brainer. They get abused for a little bit before fusing into Kalka Brainer, who isn't much to talk about fight-wise, but they sure won't be leaving my nightmares anytime soon. Coco Boko dies, causing Golbez to resurface dramatically.
There he is!
Even though the last time we saw him was like an hour ago. Cecil gets him monologuing, triggering Golbez to tell the party that the reason he needs all the crystals is to reactivate the Tower of Babel, which leads to the moon!
What the fuck?
They fight once more until, shocker, Mr. Villain is too powerful for them to defeat, when all of a sudden the Mist Dragon reappears and stops him in his tracks. The summoner of said dragon is none other than Rydia, whose reappearance proves that Leviathan is a pretty fucking incompetent natural disaster. With Rydia's help, the party manages to take down Golbez. Rydia then reveals that the reason she's like 20 years older is because she was taken to the land of summons where time flows differently and none of this matters. Anyway, Golbez turns into a hand and slowly inches towards the crystal, yoinking it while the party continues to drool on their tunics. Now that Bolgez has 7 of the 8 crystals, the Dwarf King tells the party to pull their shit together and retrieve those 7 crystals from the Tower of Babel. The party enters their second Technodrome, which looks identical to the Tower of Zot because Tolkien is a very influential writer. They eventually encounter the mysterious Dr. Lugay, whose villainous actions can be summarized as doing a little jig.
A dubious little creature getting up to mischief.
After catching him in the act, he turns into Skeleton Lugay, who continuously puts your party to sleep because that playtime needed to be padded somehow. Lugay then tells the party that the last elemental fiend already took the crystals to the surface, making this entire endeavor completely pointless. Also, Dr. Lugay fucking explodes. They collect a key from his skeletonized remains, allowing the gang to slaughter some local hoodlums who are having fun bombarding the dwarves. Also, the hoodlums fucking explode, causing the room to become aggressive.
Oh no.
Sensing that there hasn't been a party member death in a while, Yang Gang decides to leap into action, kicking the party out of the room to safety while he fucking explodes, dying for the second time. Golbez then cackles maliciously while slowly dropping the party into lava because he's basically a Bond villain. Thankfully, Sid arrives with the upgraded airship just in time to rescue them, but immediately starts getting hounded by the Red Wings.
Oh no.
Sensing that there hasn't been a party member death in a while, Sid Bid decides to leap into action, bounding from the airship and fucking exploding on the Red Wings, allowing the party to escape to the surface. Spinal Tap enter the Cave of Eblan, the cave next to the Kingdom of Eblan known for their incredible nomenclature and getting decimated by Golbez. They find what remains of their citizens and soldiers, as well as their prince doing battle with Rubicante, the elemental fiend of fire. He throws a firecracker at the fiend, causing Rubicante to retaliate with an ICBM, killing him instantly. Rubicon leaves, the party revives him, and he reveals his name to be Edge, and because I already made a shitzillion Edge jokes with Cecil, we will be moving on. He joins the party, leading them into the Tower of Babel once more, with their goal this time being to find the crystals. Again, they eventually re-encounter Rubicante and defeat him properly, prompting him to say that he'll be back because God knows characters love coming back to life in this game before vanishing, leaving all the fiends defeated. Cecil and co then enter the crystal chamber, but unfortunately Mr. Burns installed a trap door.
Oh no.
On the bright side, Golbez forgot to move the airship in the basement, giving the party another airship, known as the Falcon. However, the airship is unable to fly over magma, which is beyond stupid since it's the equivalent of an aeroplane being unable to fly over water. Thankfully, when the gang heads back to the Dwarven Castle, they find that Sid is still alive, despite blowing himself up around 15 minutes ago. He helps to fix the airship using the last of his strength to make it actually usable before dying once again. Thankfully, despite just running out of energy, Sid is still alive and just sleeping.
Get on down to Real Fake Doors, that's us!
King Dwarf tells the party to head for the sealed cavern and collect the final crystal before Golbez can engage the portcullis to the moon or some shit, I don't know. They make their way through the cave, dealing with its incredibly interesting gimmick of having doors that attack you. Amazingly, Cecil and co actually manage to obtain a crystal for once, but on their way out, they have to deal with the Demon Wall, upgraded form of the Demon Door. The Demon Wall gets demolished, and right before the exit, Kane begins to have flashbacks to all those weird mind control dojins that he read as a wee lad. Turns out Golbez is still able to tamper with his brain, causing him to steal the crystal and flee from the party, making for another completely pointless adventure.
Everybody knows the moon's made of cheese.
King Dwarf tells the party that they're colossal fuck-ups, considering that they haven't managed to stop Golbez from getting a single crystal. Fortunately, there's one more chance for them to redeem themselves in the form of this mysterious Mysidian riddle. Let's take a look, shall we? If you guessed that this gibberish was talking about an otherworldly robotic whale capable of interplanetary travel, then you guessed right. Also, you're insane. They return to Mysidia, where they literally just pray for something to happen, and it does. I can hear the writers giving up. Anyway, turns out there's a 9th crystal aboard the Lunar Whale that the party can somehow communicate with in order to
Travel to the moon!
The lunar surface is rife with apparent oxygen, little rabbit fellas, ancient dragon deities, and the Crystal Palace, Moon Crew's next destination. Upon arriving there, they encounter another old man, this one being slightly less prone to suicide than Tella. This is Fuso Ya, a Lunarian sage whose main purpose in the plot is... oh, fuck me, here we go. Alrighty, big plot dump time. Apparently there was a large group of space aliens who were located on a small unnamed planet between Mars and Jupiter that was on the precipice of destruction. These aliens would then escape to Earth, but decided that they needed a different place to sleep since they were in the midst of evolving, whatever the fuck that means. So they created the moon, and the majority of these aliens slept there, but there was one foul, relentless Alamau that wanted to blow up Earth and make a new home there instead. And while he would permanently get sent to detention by Space Gandalf, this cryptid was still able to influence people and corrupt them through his will. This character is known as Zemus, and is actually the individual responsible for Golbez's actions, and also means that he's been mind-controlling Golbez into mind-controlling Kane. And he's been collecting the crystals to, and I quote, activate the dimensional elevator in the Giant of Babel.
What the hell is even that?
I have absolutely no fucking clue what this means, even after sifting through this game's story multiple times. In addition to this, we also learn that Fuso Ya's brother, Cluya, was responsible for all of the weird unexplained shit on Earth, like the Devil's Road and the Lunar Whale. Cluya was also apparently, as the youngsters say, down bad and decided to copulate with
Unnamed Earth woman!
in order to have 2 children, one of whom is Cecil, meaning that the main character has actually been from outer space the entire time. This is also how Cecil figures out that the voice speaking to him on Mount Ordeals was his space ghost
Biological father!
from the moon. I sure hope you managed to follow all of that nonsense, because I barely did. Anyway, Fuso Ya joins the party and they head for the Giant of Babel to stop the dimensional elevator from activating.
I'd like to apologize to everyone in advance for this.
Upon arriving back on Mother Earth, the party finds that the Giant has already been activated.
Oh no.
And is causing destruction on a pretty small scale. Fortunately, before the gun can deal any more damage, the League of Super Friends arrives with tanks and airships, consisting of King Dwarf, Yang, who's still alive despite dying twice, and the Mysidians, including Palam and Porum, who are also alive now. Woo boy, it's time for another intermission. This will be a very brief rant on the importance of death as an impact in your storytelling. The death of a major character can make for an extremely emotional and memorable moment in your tale, and with interactive media like video games, it can be used to an even greater extent. In fact, there are multiple games in this series that utilize the deaths of party members in incredibly effective ways. What's less effective is having your characters die multiple times and then come back with no consequences whatsoever. It just makes death feel toothless and creates an aura of, well, who cares if X character died, they'll just be back later, ruining the immersion and hampering the story. It's a pretty big detriment to FF4's overall plot, which sucks considering its batshit insane alien and techno shenanigans are really fun. Regardless, Final Fantasy IV can at the very least be used as an example of how not to treat death in your story. Excluding Tella, of course, because he ain't coming back. Back to the action, the group enters the Giant, ascending to its head where they re-encounter all 4 of the elemental fiends who also aren't dead.
Surprise, motherfucker!
They have a big brawl, fighting all 4 of them in unison, causing the elemental lords to die for the second time, but who fucking knows, they'll probably be back later. Finding themselves in the core of the Giant, they encounter the CPU and quickly dismantle the inferior AMD product, shutting the Giant down for good. This causes Golbez to get slightly miffed and pop up once more, inspiring Fuso Ya to go and cast some moonboons on him, shattering the mind control and causing Fuso Ya to lie down for some reason. With his mind now free, Golbez recalls that he's a Lunarian too, and also the son of Cluya, making him Cecil's brother! Rightfully angry at being brainwashed for basically the entire game, Golbez and Fuso Ya set off for the moon to confront Zemus once and for all, while Kane helps the party escape, having been freed from his mind control again. He apologizes about the whole hourly betrayal thing, rejoins the party, and then they chase after Golbez, hoping to aid him in his quest against the main villain who doesn't even really have a face at this point.
They're jewels, Betty. They're jewels.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch make it back to the moon and find a teleporter that allows them to descend into the core of the moon. Also, there's 8 more crystals, meaning that there's like 17 crystals in total if you count the one on the Lunar Whale. Remember when there was 4? They heroically flee from behemoths over and over again until they finally arrive at the bottom, where they find Moon Man and Shadow Moon Man doing battle with this Nosferatu-looking ghoulie. It seems to be evenly matched until they have the genius idea to cast 2 meteors instead of 1, killing Zemus instantly. The party cheers, knowing that they accomplished nothing yet again, while Golbez attempts to apologize for the dozens of kingdoms that he massacred. However, Zemus's alien cadaver suddenly bursts into flames, revealing his actual true form to be... Golbat and Funyuns attempt to put down Zeromus, but are unable to do so due to Zeromus countering their meteors with a meteor force field because he's apparently 8 years old. He defeats the party and the actual useful characters with little to no effort, causing the writers to have to resort to the greatest weapon of all. Friendship. Various prayers arrive from all of the characters who should absolutely be dead at this point, as well as Golbez giving Cecil another fucking crystal. This fully powered JO crystal uses the light instilled in Cecil's lawful goodliness to reveal Zeromus' true form, which I actually can't even begin to interpret properly, so I guess they nailed the Eldritch theme. Despite literally being able to throw out black holes and the thing that started the universe, Zeromus is ultimately no match for the party's strongest potions and crumbles before Cecil, love interest, and their 2 human Roombas. Zeromus states that as long as there's darkness in people's hearts, he'll always remain, and claims that he'll return because he's already read the script. And then he fucking explodes for some reason. With the actual threat now defeated, Fuso Ya and Golbez decide to return to the moon and peace out for reasons that I'm not even really sure of, while the rest of the party returns to Earth. Pretty much every party member, including the temporary ones, gets some form of epilogue, with the game ending on Cecil and
Unnamed Earth Woman
crowning in Baron, leaving the game on a triumphant note. Also, there are 2 more games after this.
Oh no.